at 14, I was in middle school. The last year, so 8th grade. So this was a time when, kids are looking to identify themselves, who they are, and sometimes to identify themselves, they have to kind of be mean to others because that's how they establish, their territory and their boundaries, right? Totally understandable. But me coming in, I'm not blaming, but like things like being pushed around, being put into lockers, all those things happened to me. But I think they made me who I am. They made me strong, and they made me, trying to, establish my ground, and making me much stronger than I would have otherwise. And so I'm even thankful for those experiences.
When you're authentic, you're in an engagement where you're sharing pureness of who you are. Like there's no reservations, there's no concern for retaliation, there's no, the consequences are nothing but good in your, right, that will come out of that authenticity. But we are not always in engagements where we feel in that safe space to do that. And that can be in a work situation, a social situation, a relationship, family. I mean, that presents itself all day long. And so you have to find that courage, that courageous conversation aspect to still be you and to live and be your best self outwardly. And so that takes work sometimes of challenging yourself when you don't feel totally safe to still step out and say what you want to say and behave like you want to behave.
My vision for the future is that, organizations and leaders should really question whether what they're doing actually has a positive impact, because if not, there is no why. And obviously, there is the economical factor, and businesses make money and there has to be a return. But I think businesses that only focus on an economical return, that's sort of its dying years. And I think in the future there'll be a lot more, okay, why do they do this? And there's a reason why they do it, which has a bigger purpose or a bigger impact on the environment, on society. And it's not just about, wow, they've got a great product.
We don't yet have cures for ALS. And I think to diagnose and follow and treat people for a disease that we can't cure means that one of our biggest tools has to be helping people deal with their situation. And certainly no one person can do it. And that's why we have a multidisciplinary team and why we have, such an incredible team. I think all of us have to take that position of, we're really here to listen and to guide and to provide perspective and help people really set goals and achieve those goals. I mean, that's really how we talk about it and think about it.
You have to sort of see what kind of people they are, whoever and what drives them, what their desires are, what they like, and it's super important, I think, to be authentic with them. And I think that, what I had mentioned before about the tragedy that happened with my brother, it's really given me the ability to see, you might think that someone is being cold, or you might think that someone is being non-responsive, but it could be nerves. It could be because they're shy. It could be because they're introverts. Like, I always like to give people the benefit of the doubt and try to understand them.
If you don't have feelings, if you've cut off your feelings, it means you can exploit the natives, you can exploit the earth without any conscience. So that you could say the whole sort of progress paradigm, which has led to the problems with the planet we now experience, are to do with this dissociation and cutting off the emotional relation to the world, and therefore the conscience, you're not troubled by a conscience. I sometimes see dissociation became the engine of modernism, and the boarding schools were the hothouses where you could learn this. And actually, we've come to the limits of what we can do. We're destroying everything now. Yeah. So we've got to really relearn these old skills. The good news is that they're built into us.
Being African American and growing up and being aware of my history, what happened to George Floyd was not, unfortunately, not unique. It was certainly not the first time that something like that had been recorded, had been diffused for the country to see. But, I think that the timing of it was particular. And so it was impossible for me to show up at work and not be vulnerable, because the events, the pandemic, and that summer just really stripped me bare. And so, yeah, it was really impossible to not cry at work. It was really impossible to pretend to be okay. It was not possible to hold in my anger, my frustration. And I think I showed up more authentically in that way.
Has been that it kind of really tested the model of leadership in many Western cultures, where it's always, and many cultures around the world indeed, where government is meant to have the answers to everything. Actually, what they do is they take a range of different views, and then they decide this is the way that's going to go forward. And then you never get the answer from government. We don't know, or we're just going to try. This might work. It may not. And I think that still is a challenge right now for governments with COVID. It is as well for organisations where you've got companies. I'm sitting here in London, in central London, where many companies have now returned back to the workplace, but that's only been quite recent following the Omicron surge. Are leaders making the right call? And I think it's about being honest with people and saying, well, I'm making a considered judgment here and what I believe to be the best way of doing it. But I think that the media's got quite a lot to answer for here as well, because the media's job is always to pick bones. Yeah, but I thought you said last week that, or I thought last month you said something completely different, which means they've really, really closed down. And I think they're less likely to be fully honest with the public and less transparent about why they've made a particular decision.
It helped me see business leaders not as the job title, but as real people with families and connections and, clients as real people. And it really, I think, helped me build better relationships with those business leaders as clients, but also better relationships with colleagues as well. Because the more open I was, the more they responded to it. And, it took me, away from early days of my career when you dread going into work on a Monday and people saying, what did you do at the weekend? It's really simple questions where you were making choices about whether you should disclose what you're doing and who you're doing it with because of a fear of people judging or not liking what you were saying, and going around, which I know lots of people still do, policing your pronouns, being very careful to be vague and not identifying who your partner is, and being, very covert about your personal life, because you fear that it's going to damage your career.